I want you to imagine waking up one morning feeling like a completely different person. Your heart is racing for no reason. You are crying in the car on the way to work, and you do not even know why. You are snapping at the people you love most, and then lying awake at 3 a.m. feeling like something is deeply, terrifyingly wrong with you. You go to your doctor, and they tell you it is stress. You go back, and they suggest antidepressants. Nobody, not one single person, mentions the word perimenopause. That was my life for almost 2 years. And if any part of what I just described sounds familiar, then this video is exactly what you need to watch right now, because what happened to me is happening to millions of women, and most of them have no idea what is actually going on. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is, and this is a space where I talk honestly and openly about health, life, and the things that nobody warns you about. Today, I am sharing something very personal, my own perimenopause story, and specifically how the anxiety and depression that came with it completely turned my life upside down before I even knew what perimenopause was. I debated for a long time whether to share this publicly because it is vulnerable and it is raw and some of it is not pretty, but I kept thinking about how alone I felt during those 2 years and how desperately I searched for someone who understood what I was going through. So, if you are in the middle of it right now, or if you suspect something hormonal is going on with your mental health, or if you are just trying to understand what perimenopause actually feels like from the inside, then stay with me. This one is for you. What is perimenopause and why nobody talks about it? Before I get into my story, let me give you a quick explanation of what perimenopause actually is, because I genuinely did not know until I was already deep in the middle of it. Most women have heard of menopause, the point when your periods stop completely. But perimenopause is the transition phase that leads up to menopause, and it can start anywhere from your late 30s to your mid 40s, and it can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years. During perimenopause, your hormone levels, particularly estrogen and progesterone, start fluctuating wildly and unpredictably. And here is the part that nobody tells you. Those hormone fluctuations do not just affect your periods or your body temperature, they affect your brain chemistry directly. Estrogen plays a significant role in regulating serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters that control your mood, your anxiety levels, your sleep, your memory, and your overall sense of emotional stability. So, when estrogen starts dropping and spiking erratically, your mental health can go completely off the rails, even if you have never had anxiety or depression a day in your life. That is exactly what happened to me. My story begins the first signs I ignored. My first symptoms started when I was about 42 years old, and looking back now, the signs were there, but I had no framework to understand them. The first thing I noticed was my sleep changing. I had always been a good sleeper, but suddenly I was waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning completely wide awake with my mind racing. I would lie there for hours running through worries, replaying conversations, catastrophizing about things that in the daylight seemed completely manageable. I assumed it was work stress. I had a demanding job, a busy household, a full life. Of course, I was stressed. Then the anxiety started creeping into my days. I began feeling a low level hum of dread that I could not attach to anything specific. I would be sitting at my desk or cooking dinner and suddenly feel this wave of unease wash over me like something bad was about to happen, even though nothing was wrong. I started avoiding social situations I had always enjoyed because being around people felt overwhelming in a way it never had before. I told myself I was an introvert who was finally hitting her limit. I told myself a lot of things to explain away what was happening because the alternative, that something was genuinely wrong with me, was too frightening to sit with. When things got really dark, about 8 months into these symptoms, something shifted, and it shifted hard. The anxiety that had been manageable tipped over into what I can only describe as a constant state of low grade terror. I was having heart palpitations that sent me to the emergency room twice because I was convinced I was having a heart attack. Both times they ran tests, told me my heart was fine, and sent me home. The sleeplessness became severe. Some nights I was getting 2 or 3 hours, and the exhaustion started compounding everything else. And then the depression arrived. Not the kind of depression that looks like lying in bed crying all day, although there were days like that too. It was more like a gray fog that settled over everything. Things that used to bring me joy felt flat and distant. I stopped wanting to make plans. I started canceling on friends and making excuses. I felt disconnected from my own life, like I was watching it from behind glass. My relationship with my partner became strained because I was irritable and withdrawn, and I could not explain why, even to myself. I remember sitting in my car in a parking lot one afternoon, crying so hard I could not breathe, and genuinely not knowing what was wrong with me. That was my lowest point, and it was the moment I knew I could not keep pretending this was just stress. The journey to getting answers. Getting answers was not easy, and I want to be honest about that because I think a lot of women assume that if something is really wrong, their doctor will just figure it out. My experience was that I had to advocate very hard for myself, and even then, it took longer than it should have. My first few appointments resulted in a recommendation to try therapy, which is not bad advice, and I did start therapy, but the therapist herself was the one who first raised the possibility that what I was describing sounded hormonal rather than purely psychological. She suggested I ask my doctor specifically about perimenopause and hormonal testing. When I went back and used that word, perimenopause, the conversation changed. My doctor ordered hormone panels, and while the results came back in a range that she described as within normal limits, she acknowledged that hormone fluctuations in perimenopause do not always show up dramatically on a single blood test because the levels change so frequently. She referred me to a gynecologist who specialized in menopause medicine, and that appointment genuinely changed my life. For the first time, someone sat across from me and said, "What you are experiencing is real. It is hormonal and it is incredibly common, and we can help you." I cried in that office, not from sadness, but from the enormous relief of finally being believed and finally having a name for what I had been living through, what treatment looked like for me. I want to be very clear that I am not a medical professional and nothing I share here is medical advice. What I am sharing is simply my personal experience and what worked for my body under the guidance of my healthcare team. After extensive conversations with my doctor, we decided to try hormone replacement therapy. And for me personally, it was transformative. Within about 6 weeks, the 3 a.m. wake ups became less frequent. The baseline anxiety that had been humming underneath everything started to quiet. The heart palpitations reduced significantly. I still had difficult days, but they were manageable in a way they had not been for almost 2 years. I also made several lifestyle changes that my doctor and therapist recommended. I cut back significantly on caffeine because it was amplifying my anxiety. I started prioritizing magnesium and vitamin D based on blood work that showed I was deficient in both. I began a consistent exercise routine focused on strength training, which research suggests is particularly beneficial for hormonal health. And I got very serious about sleep hygiene. None of these things alone was a magic fix, but together with the hormonal support, they added up to something that felt like getting my life back. I also continued therapy and found that once the biological piece was being addressed, my brain was actually able to engage with the psychological tools in a way it simply had not been capable of before. What I wish someone had told me. If I could go back and talk to myself at the beginning of all of this, there are several things I would say. The first is that anxiety and depression in your 40s are not automatically a sign that something is psychologically broken in you. Your hormones are extraordinarily powerful, and when they destabilize, they can create symptoms that look and feel exactly like a mental health crisis, even when the root cause is physiological. The second is that you have to use the word perimenopause with your doctor. Do not just describe your symptoms and wait for them to connect the dots. Be direct. Ask specifically whether your symptoms could be hormonal. Ask for a referral to someone who specializes in menopause medicine if your regular doctor is not confident in this area. The third is that you are not going crazy. I cannot tell you how many times I thought I was losing my mind during those 2 years. The cognitive symptoms, the brain fog, the memory lapses, the feeling of not being able to think clearly are real and they are documented and they are hormonal. And the fourth thing I would tell myself is to ask for help sooner and to stop trying to hold everything together and pretend everything is fine. Reaching out, whether to a doctor, a therapist, or just another woman who has been through it, is not weakness. It is the most important thing you can do. You are not alone. The reason I am sharing all of this publicly is because I spent 2 years feeling completely alone in something that affects an enormous number of women. Perimenopause is not a niche experience. Every woman who lives long enough will go through it. But because we do not talk about it openly, because it is still treated as an embarrassing or uncomfortable topic, millions of women are suffering in silence and being misdiagnosed and being handed antidepressants without anyone exploring the hormonal picture underneath. That has to change, and the way it changes is when women like you and me start talking about it out loud without shame. Your mental health struggles during this time of life are not a character flaw. They are not a sign that you cannot handle your life. They are a biological response to a massive hormonal shift, and they deserve real, informed, compassionate medical attention. If this video resonated with you, please share it with every woman in your life who is in her late 30s, 40s, or early 50s, because she may be going through exactly this right now and not have the words for it yet. Drop your own experience in the comments below. Whether you are just starting to suspect perimenopause, deep in the middle of it, or out the other side, this community matters and your story matters. If you are new here, please subscribe because I am going to keep making videos about perimenopause, hormonal health, and all the things that nobody warned us about. And if you are struggling right now, please reach out to your doctor. Be honest about everything you are feeling and use the word perimenopause. You deserve answers and you deserve support. I will see you in the next video, and remember, you are not alone in this.